Hey, welcome back to another episode of Navigating Mental Health Stigma. As usual, I have Alicia here with us, and we also have Jordan. Jordan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, so like Lisa said, I'm Jordan, and I work at a clinic down in Calabasas. So I go out to schools mainly and provide behavioral support for kids with autism. So it's great.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. So this week's episode, we really wanted to discuss with somebody the effects that bullying has on mental health, because tomorrow is National Stop Bullying Day. And we really wanted to make sure that we talk to somebody who has dealt with almost on a daily basis what kids go through nowadays, because bullying is so much more different than what it was when I was younger. I feel like, Jordan, you're much younger than I am. So.
I mean, not that much, but.
But I feel like you've experienced somewhat of, the internet phase with the beginning of bullying through internet. Whereas when I was in school, internet was like dial-up. So
I was there for that. Hang up the phone.
Okay, here, let me rephrase that. When I was in high school, internet was like dial-up, and our biggest social media platform was MySpace, and there just wasn't bullying on MySpace. It was so much support on MySpace between people.
Right.
So things changed significantly with Facebook and with Instagram and, all these filters and all these things that we can have nowadays. I felt like, because you do work with autistic children, correct?
Right.
So you probably hear a lot more from them about bullying, because I feel like my little brother was bullied a lot.
Right. Yeah, I definitely have seen that within like the school system. I've witnessed, I feel like, to preface first, I think like bullying stems from not understanding something, right? And it's just people trying to navigate to understand this individual. And sometimes people use like violence, right? Whatever means it is that that person's trying to use to sort of understand this individual. So I think for kids with autism, they're very different, right? Like most of us. It's just that they really stand out. So in this particular kid that I work with, in the beginning, he was nonverbal. So he definitely stood out in his classroom, and he was in a mainstream classroom, and of course most kids like picked up, and he was young at that time. He was in first grade, and so it's very interesting to see that like bullying behavior happens very on set, and I think it's a learned behavior, and funny enough, I work with behavior, right? So so I definitely think that it's something that they pick up during their growing up phases, right? They see it in front of their parents, they inadvertently might see it in television, and they pick up on that behavior and then demonstrate it in school, where they spend most of their time. So with this particular kid that I work with, I would see him get discriminated against amongst his peers, and it's almost in the sense where it's this like pity sort of kind of bullying, it's the, oh, like, let's not have him do that sort of thing because he can't do it, and it's just this assumption that that particular kid that I work with wasn't able to do that, but he was very capable. And it's, I think like bullying has all these different facets, like phases, right? It's the misunderstanding of a certain individual, and it's also like the assumption that people have about a certain individual too, so that's what like I've witnessed with my kid, and it's different. Like you said, it's a different kind of bullying because I work with a specific demographic, and I work with a certain age group too. So it's a very early age group. So I don't see the type of bullying that you would normally like categorize during like high school years, during junior high years, which is a lot more like pervasive. I think it's a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more verbal, and it's a lot more physical. Where with the kids that I work with, their kids, you know, but it's still like, it's interesting to see that it's from the beginning.
Yeah, it starts at a very young age because, I mean, like I said, my little brother was bullied a lot as a kid. And because he was bullied all the time, he would fight kids. And
Right.
because of that, my mom took all of us out of school, mostly because like there was a lot of arguments back and forth with like teachers and staff and what my mom was supposed to do with my brother because he was like high functioning autistic, you know, but he also didn't talk to most people until he was 10 or 12. Like he was much older when he finally opened up to people. Before that, he would really only talk to me, and he would talk in what we called Kevinese because it was so fast that if you weren't thinking at his level, you couldn't understand him. And because I think my brain goes like 1,000 miles a minute,
you're like, got it.
Yeah, I
I'm on it.
completely understood.
Right. Yeah.
So my mom, in retaliation or like in her way of protecting us from the system, you know what I mean? She took us out to protect my brother from the bullies and not have to put us through what he was going through, which was really good to an extent. But it was still, for him, it was like kindergarten when he was getting bullied and into fights, and it was so young. And I think watching it happen with him has made me feel more protective over other kids that are autistic and low functioning autistic, you know what I mean? Like in high school, I would get really defensive over autistic kids that were getting picked on. Like, what is your problem? I would like almost fight people to protect these kids that I didn't even know, just because for me, it was really hurtful knowing that my little brother could get treated so badly just for thinking differently.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, you know, any instance where you see discrimination towards an individual, I think it's super important to stand up, you know, and represent that, like, that minority group, you know, because kids with autism, like, it is growing, but it's still a minority group, you know.
It is, and you're humbling someone by correcting them, confronting their behavior that's not acceptable by judging or bullying someone who, like you said, you know, they don't understand it, so their curiosity makes them say and do crazy stuff that they don't even understand at such a young age.
So do you think that because when it does start at such a young age that it could also be taught to not happen?
Yeah, like, so in an ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, right? Which is what you kind of do too, right? And at your like job, what you do. So it's, but I mean, from what we've talked about,
you're
I feel like
animals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's still, yeah, no, but it like has those like pieces, and we integrate that like with human beings, right? So like I said, like I definitely believe that bullying is a learned behavior. Anything that we learn, we can unlearn, right? It might take some time. It's going to take definitely education and patience. But I think for people that want a better world, for people that want a better community, I think it's our task to like show people and demonstrate to people how we should really treat one another, you know? But as far as like the logistics of how we would unlearn that, I'm not too familiar with that, nor do I feel like confident to talk about that, like on how you would manage to do that. But I think so, because anything that we learn, we can unlearn.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that would have to start from within the home. You know, with our generations teaching our children to be more respectful of one another. which is really hard to do too when they take off to school and, you know, they become friends with, you know, let's say the kids that are more prone to being bullies, they're going to rub off on that new friend.
Right.
So it's not something that's just from within a household that's taught. It's something that's taught from peers as well, which makes it so difficult because
which makes it so much harder.
It's such a thing, and it doesn't stop. I mean, I'm 32, about to be 33. I almost forgot how old I was because I'm getting that old.
Oh my gosh.
But, you know, like, I feel like it still happens all the time. And I feel like my mom will talk about things that's happening between her and somebody else or whatever. And I'm like, that's kind of still bullying. And how old are you guys? You know, like,
I know.
Does it ever stop? It's so sad.
I don't think so, you know, like I've heard my parents talk about that, like in their workforce too, you know, like my dad will mention like something and then like that there was a dispute happening between him and his coworkers or something. And then he'll say like, he'll coin the term like, you know, I think that was bullying or something. And it makes me laugh, you know, like hearing an older person say like, hey, like so-and-so is bullying me at work. And you wouldn't imagine that because we think that like, oh, at a certain age, that should stop.
Right.
But everything that we learn, like early on or whenever it is in our life, we take that on to our adulthood, you know? So it definitely happens with an adult.
And I think that's unfortunate because maybe people who do say stuff like that as adults are like, oh, I was bullied into doing it or something like that. They've experienced that more than likely younger, growing up. So they have the idea and it's like, oh, it's that same situation, you know, like someone's bullying me, someone's intimidating me. It's the same difference.
Right.
And that's really sad to see that as a grown-up adult because like Lisa said, my defense and kind of like I'm a bully to bullies and stand up for people comes from the fact that I'm grateful I wasn't myself bullied, but of course, you know, I've known people and seen it. And I think it comes with that balance too, and also being taught in the home is like how to pick and choose who you're surrounding yourself with, because that's also the problem is you know, kids that have no direction, so they're so confused, and that's a problem in itself, and they go into all kinds of groups of friends they shouldn't be around and bad influences. So ultimately, I think it does start in the home and constantly, you know, saying like, these are the type of people that exist and these are the type of people that exist. You need to stand up for these people and be good, you know, and look out for these people. It's being aware.
Right. And I think that's sorry to cut you off.
No,
I think
don't.
like you like literally said something that's really important, you know, you said like being aware. And once you're aware, you can become compassionate over people, you know. And I think I feel like that is probably the answer to like, you know, to like unlearn bullying. I think it's to become aware. And once you're aware, you're more compassionate over people that are not like you, that live different lives than you or that look different than you know, so.
And that's a good point because bullying is all around prejudice, judgmental, racist. It all falls under that umbrella of bullying. And people with disabilities or learning behavior, you know, learning curves, things like that. It's disturbing. And like you said, it's becoming aware, but then there are going to always be people who are just not happy, right? Because when you become an adult, it's a choice now.
Yeah.
You act a certain way and you know better. You've learned, you've been there. So unfortunately, we'll always have that balance, which is why we need to teach the kids and make it preventable at least, or at least outnumber the bullies with good people and like these heroes to stand up for the people, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's the only way we can win.
I feel like I've always said it that way, is that we all have like a superhero or a supervillain in us, and it's up to us on who we want to become, because we could all go to the dark side or the light side, you know what I mean? And I'm totally nerding out and I'm sorry for that, but
go for it.
Good metaphor.
We support you.
Yeah.
Nerd out.
I have so much support in being a nerd. I love it.
You know, I'm a nerd.
Like, I have always felt drawn to being a protective person and the healer, and I think too that's why the friends that I'm still surrounded with are people that in the past at some point I have felt the need to protect. And now I don't have a need to protect them anymore, but we're like super, super close. I was like, I don't know if I felt that with either one of you guys. I don't know if I've needed to protect either one of you yet, but no way I have, Jordan.
With me?
Yeah,
definitely. You were like a huge mama bear at Ivana.
I have with you, totally. I feel like
there's been plenty of times where you've stood up for me, which I appreciate a whole lot.
Jordan's my buddy. What do you think the impact is with mental health and bullying?
I think in particular, because everyone's different, right? Everyone has a different personality, temperament,
right?
So different experiences. So I think for who I'm speaking about, for that individual, I think he definitely like noticed, you know, that he was like sort of like an outlier in his like mainstream classroom, you know. So I think that also affected him, the way he perceived life, the way he interacted with other individuals, and which is really interesting, right? Because like kids with autism, autism is a spectrum, but for the most part, I feel that, or I know that there's deficits in like social areas and in cognitive areas and language development areas, right? So it's interesting to see kids with autism that are being bullied have this perspective that they are being bullied, right? And that it's affecting them, because it's hard for them to take on different perspectives of different individuals and see that and notice that. So I find it interesting that the kid that I work with, he notices these things, you know, when it's one of his like weaknesses,
right?
And I think he's like very sensitive towards that. But now that he's in an area, or in a classroom rather, that is more like him, where there's a lot of like atypical kids in that classroom, and obviously like within their like, you know, and with these typical or atypical kids, they're not bullying one another, they understand one another. So and he's flourished. He has the most eccentric like personality, when it's a huge contrast, because in the other classroom he was so shy to like raise his hand, and of course I would like make him like raise his hand. I'd be like, answer, like you have to like speak in front of the classroom, you're not like any different, we're going to do the same things that everyone's doing, you know. And in this other classroom he flourished. He like goes independently up to the front, he dances, he has like no shame in his game. I'm like, get it.
That's so awesome.
And he's so outspoken. He even like tells me when he thinks that I like do something wrong, he'll be like, no, I want to do that. And I'd be like, are you sure you want to do that? He's, go for it. You know, so you can definitely see like that bullying takes a toll on how you perceive life. And if it's affecting you that bad, it's definitely something that, you know, like that we should look into and better help and support people, you know.
I feel like the biggest thing I tell people is to separate yourself from whatever is bullying you. Like separate yourself from the bully and like tell others, because I feel like as a kid that's the most important thing you can do. As an adult, it's like block people from your life, get rid of them. Like I remove toxic people from my life every moment I have to, you know what I mean, to protect myself, because I know that I already deal with so many other things mentally that I'm not going to add a toxic relationship on top of everything else that I have to deal with. But I've had to get my mindset to that point. And it's taken me a long time. a very long time, knowing that I'm 32 and that I talk about it a lot more now than I did, 4 years ago when we met each other. Like, I don't think I told you anything, I think you knew that my brother and my grandfather had passed, but I never showed that it was like hurting me at work.
Yeah.
And before that, like when I was a kid, I was bullied. In high school, I was bullied. Like, I've always had to deal with really intense things in my life, but I never talked about it. And now I feel like I have a purpose to talk about it because I want people to realize that it can literally happen to anybody, and that you're not alone in your struggles. You know what I mean? That's why we're here doing this. I do know that I've witnessed bullying take such a toll on people that they have like injured themselves physically, even committed suicide. So knowing that that is a level that bullying can get to is super heartbreaking. And I don't know if because of what I went through growing up that I suffer from some PTSD, or if I have a tendency to attract myself to more toxic people, because I feel like I'm constantly going through friendships where I realize that it's toxic and I have to get rid of them before it gets worse.
Right.
So I don't know if like because of what I've been through, it just causes my attraction to that because that's what I'm used to,
I think you're just a super nice person too, and you give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Because you are aware and have good judgment. So I think that's what it is too. It's you gave them a chance.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out. Yeah. But in regards to what Jordan does with kids with autism, adjusting the environment, how you've done for that one specific individual to feel the confidence and be brave and trust. I think it's just having that safe haven, whether you're a little bit different, have autism, or like Lisa said, you have a toxic environment. It's about adjusting your whole situation around you, finding the right people to either stick up for you if you can't do it yourself. In situations like that, it's not so easy for kids with autism to just be like, oh, I don't want to be their friends anymore. There's so much more that goes into it. They want to fit in already, that they almost like take the bullying, because they don't understand. So it's like, well, this must be just how I'm treated because I'm different. So to take them out of that environment and put them somewhere, like you said, where he's just flourishing and he's so happy and he gets to show how smart he is and how creative, and that's what's missing out. Is a lot of people get bullied, so now they close in and they don't want to express themselves. They don't trust anyone to open up to. They won't be vulnerable to try new things. And we're missing out on a lot of just different skills, ideas. And it's got to be more paid attention to at a younger age, like you're doing with your work. And that's the best way to like carry that on and prevent it, because they've already been taught that. So like when you get to a point where, like Lisa's saying, as an adult, now it's a choice and it's easier to just cut them out. Because like you said, these kids are going to grow up and they're going to be the same sweet, kind souled individuals they've always been, because they understand now, some people are different, meaning some people are mean, some people are nice. And it'll be easier to navigate through life that way and protect your mental health if you can, grow up and be aware. It comes down to being aware of just what's out there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting though to find a way of teaching that in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was saying I don't think it's taught enough. That's the problem.
Yeah. So that, like, to piggyback on that, I think teachers have a huge role in this as well. If you think about it, yes, it starts in the home, right? However, what about the students or kids that are being taught different, right? Like where there's violence or where they pick up these kind of behaviors to become bullies. So I think it's very important to like give respect to the teachers, where they have a huge impact in kids because they spend 6 to 8 hours a day with them. So they're learning more with their teacher. They're picking up behaviors from their teacher. They're learning all these different things like academics, social behavior, all these different things. They're picking it up from their teachers. And whereas, like, you know, with parents, you know, like here in California, at least, both are working parents for the most part. It's just, they get home around 6 o'clock, spend 4 hours maybe, sort of, and then it's off to bed. Right. So the huge responsibility lies on teachers. And I think the upcoming teachers, they should be trained more on this and become more knowledgeable on how to navigate with instances like this, or how to teach more inclusively, you know, also. So yeah, definitely teachers need to be paid more.
I feel like we've talked so much about how psychology really plays such a role in so many different jobs that don't have to study psychology. Like being a police officer, they should have to study psychology. And
I have said that so many times to so many people. You have no idea.
I do, because you're like me.
And it's common sense, you know what I mean? Like, people really do care about who's teaching their kid and stuff. And we have this idea of, you know, we want these great teachers and teaching them morals because they're there all the time. But it's like, oh, who cares about someone who's running around with authority and weapons? You know, like it's
like, no, weird. They should care. Yeah. I really feel like it's so important, dude. It's so important that psychology needs to be taught on so many levels in our systems, for schooling, for law enforcement. But we are so behind, I think, in the United States for the way that we teach people what's necessary, because we're such a newer country. It's like, I think maybe I'm trying to give us the benefit of the doubt, just like I give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm trying to give us as the benefit of the doubt that we're still so young that we haven't learned to evolve into what needs to be.
Or it could be that we're so, like, there's so many people that are so ignorant too, you know?
See, right, there's like a fight between ideas of how things should be. And in the few places around the world, because we are not the worst off. Like,
no, we're not.
Yeah, I'll say, because that's the thing too. We are very lucky here. So there are other places around the world, only a few, I think, that have that idea of like, oh, let's all teach kindness and things like that. You know, it's not just us who's behind. I mean, the world is a hot mess. People still don't have basic human rights in most parts of the world. Exactly. You know, so I think it comes down to, because here, specifically in America, we are so free to think however we want with all of the information from around the whole wide world. And so it's still these ideas fighting with each other. People just don't agree because we are such free thinkers. So we have so many disagreements. In other places, you have people don't even think for themselves. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it has necessarily so much to do with how long we've been around. It's also the technology we have, like you said, the way bullying's advanced, just the knowledge that's available has advanced too. So because people are more aware, it doesn't change anything. It's still sad, which is why each state is so different from each other, right? We can be where we want around the people we want, which is why, like, the South used to be the way it did or whatnot. But it's still this idea of fighting of how the world should be, right? Everyone knows what the rest of the world is like. But here in America, you still have people who are so selfish. And I think that's where that kind of like bullying or that mean insensitiveness comes from. They're disconnected from how lucky they are. You know,
right?
It's so ungrateful to act a certain way here in America.
Here it's a lot of right versus wrong, but the idea of right is within your head.
Right.
That's what so one person can believe something is right, and that person has such a strict belief in this system and this way that when they hear somebody else doing it another way, they're like, no, that's wrong, as opposed to, no, equality could be a really great thing if we learn to give that to each other.
Right.
Exactly.
But people here don't want, not everyone wants that type of environment. That's what's scary and sad. You know, and that shows that balance, which is why, again, we've got to outnumber those people, you know, and make people not ignorant, because that is a problem. They're so ignorant. They shouldn't be in America in our time with the technology we have, you know?
Everything is black or white. There's like no gray area. And I feel like that's something you and I discuss often, is like, there is a gray area here, people. Like, there's a way that we can all work together, and there's a way that we can figure things out. And it's the same thing with bullying. I just feel like there's a way for everybody to fix it and stop it from happening. And it really starts with teaching our kids the correct way, I think, and, you know, treating others how you want to be treated.
Yeah, which is why it's great to start it, you know, with, we're specifically talking about, you know, autism, things like that. They are so, you know, different, but like you said, Jordan, it needs, the inclusiveness needs to be taught. Just because they're different doesn't mean they can't do the same stuff or contribute to society, you know, in a certain way.
Yeah, I agree.
My little brother, like I said, is like high functioning autistic, and there's certain things that he is just excelled in on so many levels. I think you've met him, huh, Jordan?
No, yeah, I definitely like met him, but I didn't know, like.
Well, yeah, because I mean, now he
had autism.
I think when you met him, he's like 26. You know what I mean? So he's already been through so much, and because he's high functioning now, that he's an adult, it's so much easier for him to just kind of blend in with everybody. But when we were kids, he would take apart a dirt bike and just throw it all in a pile and then put it back together, and it would run better than it did before. And I'm telling you, if I would have had to do the same thing that he did, I would have to have like a layout of a map and like little things where they belong, so I don't lose or miss something, because there's no way I could do it. So he may not have been able to read like I could read, but he could do these other things that were so beyond my thinking, you know what I mean? And it was just so highly intelligent. And I feel because of him, I've had such an admiration for atypical, autistic, whatever we want to call them, you know what I mean? Because they're so beautiful, and they have such a brilliant way of thinking that is so different from us, yes, but they're so smart in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. And I think nourishing that could really change so many things.
I think so too. I love that. And I think like something that you said that really resonates is the whole like aspect that they're different, you know? And oftentimes when we think of the word different, there's like this negative connotation, right? But in my brain, the way I think of different, it's a variety.
Yeah.
And I think if we have variety, and there's like this thing, my brain always goes to like science realm, right? So I think of like biodiversity, and in a population where there's biodiversity, that means that there's more things to gain from. So I think that's the type of like perspective that kids should be taught, that different is something positive.
Yeah.
That, like you were mentioning about your brother, like his different mentality should be nourished, should be empowered, because who's to say that the things that he's excelling in is less than, than someone's ability to read. It's amazing that he can do that. Like most kids at that age group are just like, playing whatever it is that they're playing, like dodgeball or
something.
Exactly, playing with figurines, and your brother was like taking apart motorcycles,
a mechanic.
Exactly. So I think the emphasis should be on the teaching of that different is amazing, that different causes biodiversity.
Yeah, and it goes to with changing the stigma. Like we will always have the same theme of, oh, they're special, and it's like that should be celebrated because refined and pay a little more attention, to what is so special about them. God forbid, no one knew or paid attention to someone like Stephen Hawking, who's can't express himself or anything, but has one of the most brilliant minds of all time. So this idea of special, it needs to be taught that no, there is probably something very special, which is why maybe there's something a little bit different physically or mentally. Some of the most genius people are some of the like most antisocial, or look how crazy Albert Einstein was, right? So not understanding the forms of autism, or because someone's not diagnosed with it, it's just, it's kind of silly, right? It's illogical. It's just, we're missing out on a lot.
Well, couldn't you say that
special people
could possibly be on a spectrum, and it's just a lever of where your brain is more likely to focus as far as what you're more likely to learn and pick up on? So like people can be like book smart or street smart or life smart and like understand everything. Let's just say this entire bar lights up green, you know what I mean? Because they get it all. And then there's people who are just so mathematically inclined, and that's great. Or mechanics, little things. And I feel like it's just a line where everybody's at, and you can understand all of these things, you can understand part of them, but to judge somebody based on their understanding of school, is so brutal. It's just so brutal. And I think our schools, if we found a way to, like I said, nourish and just provide more education in what somebody is excelling in, you know what I mean? So like, let's say they're really good at mechanics. Like, let's offer them the mechanic courses and mathematics a little bit more. Still give them the English courses that they need, but don't push them so hard to be like excelling in that. What they need to be excelling in is what they're already really good at.
And exactly, like, I think that too, like, since I'm before pre-COVID, like, we would go in class, right? Which seems so like distant. I'm like, man, how did that even look like?
Right.
But, I think like you make a really valid point. Like, instead of focusing so much on academics, also let's teach them like these life skills, like how to interact with people, how to communicate with people. And I think it's also a cultural thing, because I know my mom, like, she would tell me, I don't know why you guys don't have like public relations, like sort of courses in like middle school. She's like, at that time, she's like, we're preparing on how to interact with people out in the workforce. She's like, so you guys are like playing dodgeball, like trying to beat a certain time, for like the mile run or whatever it is, like all these different things, right?
Where's your mom from? Sorry, I don't want to.
From Ecuador. From Ecuador. So, like, I think it's important to see these different cultural significance, right, that other cultures are doing, and implement that in maybe in our school system, and instead, like, no, I don't believe that we should deviate from like academics, because it's definitely like necessary, but also like we should definitely teach them on how to interact with people, how to treat people, have different things where other kids that aren't so well in academics, that they feel empowered, that, man, like I can really communicate well with people, or I do really good at like like taking apart a motorcycle, or building something, like, yes, they do that in class, but it's not celebrated. It's like, oh, let's take a break from this. It's not seen as like, man, this is like a really intense period, and some of you guys aren't going to do so well, but some of you guys are going to do amazing.
There's so many things in our system that just need changing, and I think the word change scares so many people. Like, you tell them that this needs to be changed, and they're like, oh my God, change is so bad, and we've done it this way for so many years for so many reasons. But if we never try to make it better, it's never going to get better. And
we'll never know.
Right. we'll never know. If we never try, we never fail. We never fail, we never learn. Like, there's so many little things that get us to the next step. And I think things in our system need to be tweaked, from government to police, and law enforcement, whatever, schooling, education. All of these little things need some tweaking. And I'm just hoping that with our discussions and with other, like, obviously our minds are opening up to this change, which means there's other people that are out there in the United States right now and in the world that want to see this change as well. And I think if we're willing to talk about it, they're probably willing to talk about it. And it's just little things, little steps that get us toward that change. So hopefully it helps to make some sort of difference, to see a change in our school systems, to help kids learn in a way that is more sufficient per each student, that's not going to judge them so much on being book smart. Book smart is great. I mean, to an extent, it's wonderful, but there's so many things that we need to learn for life that we don't learn until we're adults. So I think teaching more life smart at school might be more sufficient to a lot of kids.
Definitely. I think so too.
Maybe.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
It's like, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a politician, I can't make these changes, but I can talk about them, so.
Exactly. And that's the step.
Example. Like, we all live our lives in a certain way, and we set that example, whether it be just how you treat other people, or if you are out there and you stand up for someone, it's going to make an impact on somebody. It's just a matter of everyone intentionally, I think, doing these things and being aware of when it's necessary.
Right.
And it does make impact. Someone will hear this, and it's going to plant that seed, and it's like, there's no way you can't think about it the next time you're like trying to like be mean or like talk crap about someone. It does plant a seed. I think it all helps. Doesn't matter how much or whatnot. We can't change the world overnight, but
we can make small changes within ourselves.
We can contribute to changing it.
Agreed. It's like,
exactly.
Cheesy, corny moment.
I know. Hearts everywhere. Who doesn't love hearts?
Yes.
Come on.
Jordan, I am so appreciative of your knowledge because of what you do for a living. And I, like I said, never in a million years thought I would be discussing children and bullying with you. Ever. Just when I met you, I remember you were so about, your schooling and becoming a surgeon. I don't know if that's still your path. Is that still your path, that you still plan on becoming a surgeon? Okay, you're going to be a surgeon.
Good for you.
I don't know what kind of surgeon, but you're my surgeon.
Doesn't matter. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's a cardiothoracic surgeon, so I don't think you want to see me.
Well, I know that if I need to, I would feel a lot safer knowing it's you.
Yeah, and knowing he's a good person, right? Who cares about people? Geez.
I'm like, everything in his power to save me.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm super grateful to have met you too, and it's such a peace of mind to know there are people like you out there,
Yeah, thank you.
And it's no surprise you're friends with Lisa, so
yeah,
it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm blushing.
You're like, it's all because of me.
No, it made me feel good because she's like, it's no, like.
Yeah, of course.
Like, somehow I'm such a good person that I attract good people, and I don't know, it made me feel good for a moment, because I've been so down in the dumps the last, it's been hard, it's been years since my grandfather passed and years since my grandma passed, and this month is also my grandma's birthday, and Mike's birthday is coming up next month, and it's like so many family birthdays and death anniversaries and so many things that are just like dragging me down. So to know that I have people like you to kind of turn to on mental health day and like text you guys and bug you while I'm at the track, it felt so good. Yeah. So thanks so much.
Definitely.
And thank you for sharing your knowledge, Jordan. I truly appreciate
it. Of course. And thank you guys for listening.
Yeah. Anytime you want to come on and talk about whatever, let me know.
Yeah, we talk about all kinds of stuff.
Oh, believe me, I've got some stories to tell.
Right.
I bet. So thanks everybody so much for hanging out with us this week on Navigating Mental Health Stigma. Don't forget to celebrate National Stop Bullying Day and make sure that you stand up for those that are being bullied. Tell somebody if you see it happening, and make sure that you remind that person that they are cared for and that they're loved, because that's really all we need, right?
Yep.
Thanks guys. Bye.